I ain't the kind of man who goes snooping. Never had a reason to. I trusted my wife, you know? We'd been together almost 9 years, married for 6. I thought we had something solid, simple, maybe, but honest. We weren't flashy. No Instagram perfect vacations, no fancy brunches, none of that modern marriage crap. Just Sunday barbecues, country music on the back porch, and long drives in my old Dodge Ram. I paid the bills, kept the lawn mowed, changed the oil, and figured that was enough. I figured wrong. That day started like any other. She was running late for work and hollering from upstairs about not being able to find her car keys. I was in the kitchen pouring my coffee, and she was already on edge. "Can you check my purse, babe?" she called out, voice high and tight. "I think I left him in there." So I did. Now, I've been with this woman long enough to know she's got more purses than most folks got shoes. But the one sitting by the front door was the one she took everywhere, the big red leather one I got her for Christmas last year. I reached in, felt around between her wallet, makeup bag, some receipts, and a little zip-up pouch. I unzipped it just to make sure the keys weren't tucked in there, and that's when I saw it. A fresh pack of birth control pills. At first, I just stared at them like they weren't real. Just this neat little plastic wheel, tucked in like it belonged there. My heart didn't even speed up at first, it just stopped cold, like my whole chest froze over. We hadn't used any kind of protection in years. Not since we decided kids weren't in the cards and settled into our rhythm. She said she didn't want hormones in her body, that we were safe enough. That was her line. So what the hell was this? She kissed me on the cheek and was out the door before I could say a word. I stood there, still holding that little plastic tray, my coffee forgotten, my stomach twisted in a way I hadn't felt since my dad told me Mom was leaving. That night, I couldn't sleep. She came home late, said she was working late on a project. Smelled like perfume and bar air. I didn't ask anything. Didn't need to. My gut already knew. I waited until she went to bed, then I got to work. I'm no tech wizard, but I know my way around a smartphone. I installed an app I'd heard about from a buddy who caught his girlfriend stepping out. It let me read her messages, track her location, and record anything that came through her mic. It was dirty, sure, but not as dirty as lying to your husband. The next morning, while she was in the shower, I checked the app. Took me 5 minutes to find it all. She was texting him. Her ex. The same one who used to call her in the middle of the night when we first started dating. The one she swore she hadn't talked to in years. His name lit up in her messages like a slap to the face. And the things she wrote. I felt like I was going to throw up. She called me boring. Said I was just a man who paid for her lifestyle. Said he made her feel alive. He gives me what he never could, she wrote. Then, like twisting the knife, she added, he thinks I'm working late. He always buys that. And then a string of laughing emojis. I just stared at the screen for a while. Felt like someone poured boiling oil down my spine. I'd spent nearly a decade building a life with this woman, working overtime, fixing up the house, carrying her when she lost her job, standing by her when her mom got sick. I gave her everything I had. And to her, I was just a walking wallet. A placeholder while she chased something that should have stayed in the past. Right then and there, something snapped inside me. Not like a breakdown. More like steel going cold. A quiet kind of fury. I didn't yell. Didn't cry. I just sat at the kitchen table, lit a cigarette I hadn't touched in years, and started planning. If she thought I was just a paycheck, fine. Let her think that. Let her keep thinking I was clueless. Because I wasn't going to confront her. No. I was going to burn her whole damn world down. Piece by piece. And I was going to make sure she never saw it coming. First thing I did was call up a man named Tommy Garrison. Old friend of mine from my early days working security out at the rail yard. Tommy left that line of work years back and went full-time private eye. He was the kind of guy who could follow a ghost through fog and come back with a photo, a receipt, and a timestamp. Real low profile, real precise. I hadn't seen him in over a year, but he picked up the phone on the first ring. "Tommy, it's me. I need a job done. Quiet, clean, and thorough." He didn't even ask what it was. Said, "Where do I start?" I gave him her work schedule, her usual haunts, and told him what I already knew. He didn't waste time. Said he'd have updates in a few days. And he did. Hell, he had a full report by the end of the week. Turns out their little rendezvous weren't as secret as she thought. Same pattern every time. Wednesday evenings, she'd say she was catching up on reports. Friday nights, she'd grab drinks with coworkers. Saturday afternoons? Just running errands. Only she wasn't headed to Target or meeting her office pals. Tommy followed her to a roadside and out off Highway 14. Nothing fancy, just a two-story with tinted windows and a front desk clerk who didn't ask questions. He got photos. Timestamps. Her car. His car. Them going in. Them coming out. Sometimes they'd meet at a little coffee shop across town, the kind of place that plays soft jazz and charges $5 for a muffin. They'd sit close. She'd lean in like he was telling her state secrets. Smiling. Touching his hand like it was the only hand in the world. Tommy captured it all. I had a file the thickness of a small phone book by the end of 2 weeks. While Tommy handled the shadows, I went about locking down my side. First stop, my lawyer, Dan Wilcox. We'd gone to the same high school, and he owed me a favor or two. When I called him, I didn't tell him much, just that I needed to draw up a divorce plan, tight and fast, and I needed it airtight. We sat down in his office that Tuesday. I laid out the facts, showed him just a glimpse of the evidence. Don't tell me the whole story, he said. Tell me what you want. I told him. I wanted to protect everything I built. I wanted the house, the truck, my tools, and every dollar that was mine. I wanted her to walk away with nothing but whatever garbage she packed into that red purse of hers. Then we'll start moving, he said. The business was next. I co-owned a contracting outfit with a guy named Ruben. We've been partners 6 years. Ruben's one of the few people I trust, straight shooter, doesn't talk much but works like a damn ox. I met with him after hours, told him what was going on, and asked if he'd be willing to sign over his half for now so I could secure the whole thing in my name. I'll sign whatever you need, he said. She don't deserve none of this. We had papers drawn up by the end of the week. He'd get his share back once everything was squared away, but until then, it was mine on paper. Fully protected. Then I got to work on the finances. She and I had 2 joint accounts, one checking, one savings. I moved what I could into my personal accounts. Quietly. Over several days. Just enough at a time to not raise red flags. The rest I funneled into a new account under the business name. I also canceled the cards we shared and requested replacements mailed to my office. She didn't even notice. I froze all new credit applications. Changed passwords. Put a hold on mail forwarding in case she got nosy. I even contacted our insurance agent and removed her from the auto policy. Bit by bit, I was untangling her from every part of my life. Not out of pettiness, but out of necessity. I wasn't about to let her burn down what I spent a decade building while she ran off and played house with her past. It was like working a puzzle backwards. You don't start from the middle. You break it down piece by piece, box it up, and make sure no one can touch it again. By the time the 3rd week rolled around, I had everything locked down tighter than Fort Knox. Tommy was still feeding me updates, new photos, new texts, new meeting spots. I just nodded and added them to the growing pile. I never confronted her. Never raised my voice. Every morning, I poured her coffee like nothing was wrong. Kissed her on the cheek like always. Let her think I was the same man she thought she could fool. But in my head, the switch had flipped. I wasn't her husband anymore. I was her shadow. Watching. Waiting. Planning. And she didn't have the faintest clue what was coming next. Once all the pieces were set, I stopped playing the part of the dumb husband. Not outwardly, of course. I still kissed her goodbye in the mornings, still made dinner on Wednesdays when she worked late, still folded her laundry like a loyal fool. But inside, I was watching every move, every step, every message she typed out with that snake she used to date. She thought she was clever, calling him D in her contacts. Real original. By now, I had every routine down to the minute. I knew when they met, where they went, how long they stayed. Tommy kept the GPS feeds updated, and I could see her move around town like a blinking dot on a map. She'd get in her car wearing that little black jacket she never wore for me, and I'd lean back in my recliner, pop a cold one, and wait for the fun to start. Their first meetup after I finalized the money transfers was at that same rundown hotel out on Route 14. They always checked into room 107. I knew the clerk. Not personally, but well enough. Man couldn't hold water if he had a bucket. One phone call with the right voice and tone, and the next time they checked in, that place went into full lockdown. I told the front desk, anonymously, of course, that there might be an explosive device planted in a room. Gave just enough detail to spook him without causing real danger. 10 minutes later, cops swarmed the place. Sirens, flashing lights, even a canine unit. Every guest was hauled out into the parking lot while officers swept the rooms. I watched the whole thing go down from my truck, parked across the street behind a shuttered diner, sipping black coffee like it was a front row seat to a comedy show. There she was, standing barefoot on the sidewalk, arms crossed, wrapped in a hotel towel. And there he was next to her, shoulders hunched, talking to a cop. She looked rattled. He looked like he wanted to crawl into a manhole. That little moment? Worth every ounce of effort. But I didn't stop there. Next time they tried to get cozy, it was dinner downtown. She made up a lie about a girls' night out, left the house in a dress she hadn't worn since our anniversary 3 years back. I already knew where they were headed. This Italian place called Ferraro's, real swanky, candles on the table, waiters in black ties. I knew the head chef's cousin. Called in a small favor. My wife's allergic to walnuts. Not life-threatening, but enough to send her running to the restroom clutching her throat if she even tastes it. I asked for just a sprinkle in the garnish of her salad. Nothing dangerous, just enough to make the night memorable. She must have taken 2 bites before her face turned red and she started fanning herself with the napkin. The waiter apologized profusely, of course. Meal was comped. Night was ruined. And I was parked a block away, watching them argue through the restaurant window. She was ranting to her ex about how weird everything had been lately. First the hotel, now this. I feel like we're being watched, she said. He brushed it off, but I could tell from his tone he was starting to believe it too. Probably thought he broke a mirror or walked under a ladder. Good. It didn't stop there. I swapped her regular shampoo with the kind that made her scalp itch. I rerouted one of her Amazon packages to my buddy's address just to mess with her. I even got into her fitness tracker app and changed her step goals so she'd get annoying reminders every 10 minutes that she wasn't moving enough. Real petty stuff. Nothing that'd leave a mark, just enough to throw her off her game. One night, she came home and paced the kitchen like a caged cat. I was chopping onions for chili and pretending not to notice. She opened the fridge, closed it, opened it again, slammed the door. Then she leaned against the counter and just stared at me. You ever feel like the universe is out to get you? She asked. I shrugged. Nope. Just sounds like bad luck. She didn't respond. Just stood there chewing her lip, looking like she'd seen a ghost. And me? I kept stirring the pot. She started texting less, checking over her shoulder more. Meanwhile, her ex went quiet for a couple days, probably trying to make sense of it all. Probably asking himself if someone knew. He was right. Someone did. Every time I read one of their messages now, I smiled. Because the man they thought was some gullible chump? He wasn't blind. He was patient. And he had just begun. Pressure's a funny thing. You don't always see it coming. You don't always hear it. But it builds. Quiet and steady. And then, one day, the whole dam breaks. Her ex, let's call him Travis, he wasn't built for that kind of pressure. He liked things easy. Back when she and I first started dating, he was the type of guy who drifted from job to job, always trying something new that never stuck. When they reconnected, he had a cushy middle management gig at a regional logistics company. Fancy title, but all it meant was pushing paper and talking big. I knew the type. Wore button-ups that still had the fold creases in them. Always had some idea for a startup, but never followed through. Tommy, my PI, had already dug up his file. Everything from failed ventures to a warning on his HR record for unprofessional conduct, their words, not mine. I flagged that part. I knew we'd use it later. While I played games with their dates, Tommy did the deep work. He'd already found out where Travis worked, where he parked, even what gym he went to. One afternoon, I asked him to go ahead and put the next phase in motion. Real simple. A well-worded, anonymous tip sent to the ethics board of the company. Subject, one Travis S., and his behavior with a married woman, also an employee at another firm they sometimes contracted with. Nothing specific. Just enough to stir the pot and kick up dust. The email included a few photos, blurred faces, of course, but just enough to plant doubt. And the suggestion that maybe he'd used company time and resources to meet her. I didn't even have to lie. I just nudged the truth forward. A week later, Travis was let go. Apparently, they called it a violation of conduct policy and walked him out with a cardboard box and a frozen smile. Tommy didn't even have to be there for the show. One of his office contacts tipped him off. They said Travis looked like a deer on opening day, stammering, sweating through his shirt. My guess is, he didn't even know where it started. Could have been anything, he probably thought. He had no clue it was me. That made it sweeter. After that, he stopped contacting her for a few days. I could see it on the phone logs. No calls. No messages. Just a blank screen where his name used to light up. She tried reaching out. First friendly. Hey, what's up? Haven't heard from you. Then worried. Are you okay? Then bitter. If you're ghosting me, at least be a man about it. He didn't reply. By the third day, she was unraveling. Her texts started bouncing between anger and desperation. I need you. Did I do something wrong? You promised me this was real. Why are you punishing me? I read each one like I was flipping pages in a novel I'd already written. The ending wasn't a twist. It was inevitable. And still, I didn't say a word. She started pacing around the house more, quieter than usual. Her phone barely left her hand. I'd catch her glancing out the window, like she expected him to show up and explain it all. Maybe beg her to run off with him again. Maybe apologize for the silence. He didn't. He packed up and left town. That's the part that really made her spiral. I found out through Tommy. Travis broke his lease and moved out of his apartment 2 days after the firing. Canceled his gym membership. Disconnected his number. His social media went dark. The guy just vanished. No grand goodbye. No fight. No closure. Just a big empty space where the fantasy used to be. The same guy she risked everything for, her marriage, her dignity, had just dipped out the back door without so much as a note. It was poetic, and I got to watch it all unfold like a slow-motion car crash. She tried to keep up appearances, of course. Still wore that perfume when she left for work. Still smiled at me across the dinner table like she hadn't betrayed me with another man in 3 different parts of town. But her eyes gave it away. There was a panic there now. A hollowness. She was checking her phone constantly. The screen stayed dark. The silence was eating her alive. Every now and then she'd ask me strange questions, roundabout things. Do you think people always come back to the ones they truly care about? Or have you ever felt abandoned by someone you trusted? I just played dumb, shrugged, said something like, can't say I've thought much about it. The truth was, I had. And I was watching it happen. The thing about betrayal is, people always assume it'll play out loud. Screaming matches, broken dishes, bags packed in the middle of the night. But sometimes it just crumbles quiet. No explosions. Just one bad decision followed by another, until the walls close in. She'd bet everything on him. And now she had nothing. But me? I wasn't finished. Not even close. It was a Tuesday, early spring. Sky had that low, gray ceiling like it was thinking about rain but hadn't made up its mind. I'd been planning this part for weeks, but the final morning still felt like something out of a dream. Not a bad dream. Not anymore. Just something strange and slow and quiet. She had gone to work like nothing was wrong. Kissed me on the cheek, called out over her shoulder to take the trash out. Same routine. Only difference was, this time I didn't watch her car pull out the driveway like I usually did. I just turned around, shut the door, and got to work. I had one duffel bag already packed in the garage. Just the essentials. Couple changes of clothes, my hunting knife, a small tackle box with the watches and cash she didn't know about, and a backup drive with every bit of evidence I'd gathered. No clutter. No keepsakes. I wasn't dragging the past with me. Just what I needed to disappear clean. I leashed the dog, Rusty, our mutt, and told him we were going for a ride. He wagged his tail like it was any other day. That dog had been with me through thick and thin, and I wasn't about to leave him behind to deal with her mess. Before I left, I stood in the kitchen for a while, just looking around. The coffee pot still had a little in it from the morning. Her favorite mug sat on the counter, the one with the little chip on the rim. I stared at it longer than I should have. Not because I cared, but because I remembered when I bought it. A flea market trip upstate. Back when things were still good, or at least I thought they were. I took a deep breath and pulled a piece of paper from my back pocket. Wrote just 3 words across it in plain black ink. You messed up. I placed it on the kitchen table beside my wedding ring. Just laid them there in the center, nothing else around, like a tombstone on a wide, empty field. That ring had stayed on my hand through a decade of promises. It came off easy that morning. Then I picked up the mailers. 3 yellow envelopes, each thick with printed photos and timelines. One to her parents, one to her boss, one to her best friend since high school. I didn't include opinions, just facts, dates, times, pictures, screenshots. Let them draw their own conclusions. I dropped them off at the post office down the highway, paid cash, no return address. The clerk didn't even look at me, just weighed the envelopes and handed me the receipts. After that, I hit the highway. Took the long road out of town, the one that winds past the old grain silos and dead cotton fields. Radio was off. Window cracked just enough to let Rusty stick his nose out. My mind was quiet. No noise, no doubts. I wasn't running away. I was walking out. People talk about closure like it's this big emotional thing, like you need a final argument or a door slam to feel satisfied. Not me. I didn't need to yell. Didn't need to see her face when she realized I was gone. Her panic, her tears, her confusion, none of it mattered anymore. That part of my life had died, and I'd already buried it. What mattered was that the truth was out now. Her folks would know what kind of daughter they raised. Her boss would see what kind of person he'd been praising. And her friends, the ones who smiled at me while keeping her secrets, would see her without the makeup. She'd try to spin it, I'm sure. Probably say I overreacted, that I was controlling, maybe even dangerous. People always rewrite the story when they lose control. But it wouldn't stick this time. The truth didn't need defending. It stood on its own, ugly and undeniable. I drove until the sun started dipping low, pulled into a small town I'd scouted weeks earlier. Cheap motel. Quiet. Just one story, gravel parking lot, vacancy sign half lit. I paid in cash, asked for a room on the end. Rusty jumped on the bed and curled up like he'd done it 100 times. I didn't unpack much. Just sat on the edge of the mattress, stared at the wall, and let the silence settle. No texts. No calls. Just stillness. It wasn't happiness, exactly. But it was something better. Freedom. I didn't know what came next. Didn't have a 5-year plan or some grand dream. But I knew what I wasn't anymore. I wasn't a man being used. I wasn't a backup plan. I wasn't her fool. I was gone. And she'd figure that out real soon, standing there in that quiet kitchen, reading those 3 words next to the cold ring. You messed up. They say karma takes its time. I disagree. Sometimes it shows up on your porch wearing steel-toed boots and kicks the door clean off the hinges. That's exactly what happened to her after I disappeared. I wasn't around to see it in person, but I got the updates. Quietly, through friends who still talked to both of us, through bits and pieces Tommy picked up, and through the messages I still had access to. I'd been careful not to shut the door completely, just removed myself from the room and left a window open to listen. The morning she came home and found the house empty must have hit like a freight train. No dog, no clothes, no truck in the driveway. Just that note and my ring, sitting like a dead weight on the kitchen table. She didn't call me right away. Probably too proud. She called her mom instead. That didn't go the way she thought it would. See, by then, the envelope I'd sent had landed. Her mother had seen the photos of her and Travis at the hotel, the restaurant, the park. She'd seen the screenshots of her texts, her plans, her bragging. And from what I heard, her mom didn't say much on the phone, just asked if it was true. She tried to deflect, say it wasn't like that, say I must have forged the pictures. But her mom knew. That silence on the other end of the line? That was the sound of a mother seeing her daughter for who she really was. Her dad didn't even answer the next time she called. That was the beginning of the unraveling. She reached out to her 2 closest friends next, girls she'd known since high school. They'd been thick as thieves for years. Used to meet every other Friday for wine and gossip. But both of them had gotten an envelope too. The one with the pictures. The one with the truth. Neither responded. Not to texts, not to voicemails, not even to the knock on their doors. By the end of that week, she was down to messaging coworkers, people she thought might still be in her corner. That was a mistake. One of those coworkers was her manager's assistant. And her manager? Well, he got an envelope too. Right to his desk at the agency. The company she worked for had one of those values-based culture mottos stamped on every wall. Integrity. Trust. Respect. Funny how those words suddenly mattered when they had evidence in hand of her messing around on company time with a client rep. Even if Travis had already skipped town, the damage was done. She was pulled into HR 2 weeks after I left. Walked out an hour later without her badge. The official phrase was internal moral conduct review. The reality? She got dumped by her job just like she got dumped by her fling. She didn't post anything online. Didn't rant. Didn't play the victim. Not at first. She just went quiet. But inside, I know she was boiling. That's when she tried to strike first. Thought she'd catch me off guard. Filed for divorce like she was going to hit me where it hurt. Probably pictured herself walking into court with a smug grin, ready to carve up what she thought was still half hers. She got a rude awakening. Her lawyer must have called her the day they pulled up the finances. The joint accounts? Empty. The credit cards? Closed. The savings? Moved weeks before. And the house, our house, the one I paid for and maintained, still in my name. Always had been. We were supposed to retitle it after her name changed post-marriage, but like most things she promised to do, she never followed through. Now it bit her hard. She called my lawyer's office 3 times that week. Left messages ranging from polite to frantic. Dan didn't respond. Just documented everything. Word got back to me that she started asking around about where I went. Asked one of her neighbors if they'd seen me. Tried calling the shop, but Ruben didn't give her an inch. Said I was out and didn't know when I'd be back. She was starting to understand now. She hadn't just been caught, she'd been outplayed. Every move she made, I'd already been 5 steps ahead. While she was busy chasing a fantasy, I was securing the real world. While she was laughing in text messages, I was packing documents. While she was lying, I was building an escape plan. I didn't need revenge to feel good. Watching her life fall apart on its own was enough. One poor decision at a time, the whole web she'd spun collapsed. No friends. No job. No family support. No fallback guy. Just silence. And me? I was nowhere to be found. It was bound to happen sooner or later. I figured she'd try to find me. She always did hate being left without answers. Took her longer than I expected, though. Maybe she thought I'd come crawling back on my own. Maybe she thought guilt would get the better of me. Either way, she ended up hiring her own private investigator. Must have burned her real good to realize she was the one doing the chasing now. I was staying in a cabin about 3 counties over, renting from an old vet who didn't ask questions and only took cash. I'd settled into the routine. Early mornings, coffee on the porch, long hikes with Rusty, and silence that didn't demand anything from me. Peace, real peace, after years of walking on eggshells. She found me on a Thursday afternoon. I heard tires crunch on the gravel outside. Looked through the window and saw her car, the same silver sedan she used to drive to her work dinners. I didn't panic. Just leaned back in the chair and waited. She knocked twice, then once more, soft and uncertain, like she wasn't sure if I'd even answer. I opened the door, and there she was. Hair pulled back, no makeup, eyes swollen like she hadn't slept in days. She looked smaller somehow. Not physically, but like whatever armor she used to wear, the attitude, the pride, it had all cracked and slipped off somewhere along the way. She didn't speak right away. Just looked at me like I was some ghost she'd been chasing. Then finally, she said my name, quiet and shaky. I needed to see you. I didn't invite her in. Just stood there in the doorway. She started rambling, voice breaking here and there. Said she made a mistake. Said she'd been lost, confused, stupid. Said it hadn't meant anything. That she missed us. That she missed me. Tears started rolling, and she tried to step forward, but I didn't move. Then came the question. Where did I go wrong? She asked. Not like a challenge, more like a woman genuinely confused how her house of cards had come down around her. I looked her dead in the eyes and said, "You didn't hide the pills good enough." That stopped her cold. Her face twisted, part shock, part realization, part shame. She opened her mouth like she wanted to say something, then closed it. That silence between us stretched for what felt like a full minute. Then, just like that, her tone changed. The tears dried up, and she got that old spark back, the one she used when she was angry and wanted to win. "I'll see you in court," she said, chin lifted like it was a threat that might still land. I laughed. Not hard, not mocking. Just one of those laughs that says, you don't know what you're walking into. And then I shut the door. Court came 3 weeks later. She walked in dressed sharp, clean blouse, neat hair, folders tucked under her arm like she was about to deliver a presentation. She had a lawyer with her, some big name she probably paid through the nose for. I came in with Dan, my lawyer, my friend, and a man who'd already seen every page of the mess she made. She tried to paint a picture. She was abandoned. She had been wronged. She deserved half of everything. The house, the business, the savings. She sat there with tears queued up on command, using words like neglect and financial control, trying to turn the tables. Then Dan stood up. He didn't argue. He just presented. Exhibits A through F, photographs, printouts, timelines, GPS data, testimony from the private investigator, financial statements showing how and when the money was moved, receipts for everything in my name, copies of the joint account closures with her signature, copies of the business transfer to my partner, approved and finalized weeks before she even filed. It wasn't an argument. It was an autopsy. The judge didn't even need the full hearing. Looked over the evidence, asked a few questions, and then dropped the hammer. She got nothing. No spousal support. No claim on the house. No share of the business. The accounts were clean and clear. All assets protected and documented. Everything had been legal, above board, and airtight. She sat there frozen while the judge read out the order. I didn't look at her. Didn't need to. I already knew what was on her face. The same look she had that day she stood in my cabin, staring at a man she thought she understood, realizing too late she'd underestimated him. We left the courtroom in silence. Dan clapped a hand on my shoulder outside. "You good?" he asked. I nodded. And that was that. No fireworks. No big speech. Just the final nail in a coffin she built herself. And I walked away for the last time, without a single ounce of regret. 1 year. That's all it had been, but it felt like another life entirely. I ended up settling in a small place out past the edge of the county line, where the road turns from asphalt to gravel and the stars actually show up at night. It ain't much, just a 2-bedroom cabin with a wraparound porch and a fireplace that actually gets used, but it's mine. No clutter. No noise. Just trees, quiet mornings, and the sound of Rusty's paws padding around the floor. I built a routine again. Not the kind that drains you, but the kind that gives you back what life took. Mornings started with hot coffee, black and strong, and a walk through the backwoods. I spent my days fixing fences, tending a garden I never thought I'd care about, and fishing at the pond down the hill. Sometimes I'd drive into town, grab supplies, or sit at the diner where the waitress calls everybody honey and keeps the coffee coming. And I met someone. Didn't plan on it. Wasn't looking. But she came into my life the way good things sometimes do, quiet, unannounced, and without trying too hard. Her name's Claire. Works at the feed store. No makeup, no games, just soft smiles and eyes that don't look past you when you talk. Took me a while to trust again, I won't lie. But she never rushed me. Never pushed for more than I was ready to give. She brings pie when she visits. Peach or cherry, always homemade. And she talks to Rusty like he's a person. That alone tells me everything I need to know. Folks in town started noticing the change in me. Said I looked lighter, like a weight had finally lifted off. Maybe it had. Maybe I finally let go of that man who kept trying to fix something that was already broken in 1,000 invisible ways. I didn't think much about my ex. At least, not most days. But in a small world, word gets around whether you want it to or not. I heard she'd bounced through 2 more jobs since the divorce. One at a marketing firm. The other doing admin work at some real estate office. Both short-lived. Same story both times, office drama, lack of trust, and one too many personal calls during work hours. Neither place kept her long. Her friends? Most of them had faded away. Some of them were the ones I'd sent the truth to. Others just seemed to drift off once the shine wore off and the attention turned sour. She tried to reach out to people again, rebuild her circle, they said, but folks weren't interested. Holidays came and went, and she wasn't invited. Even her parents didn't bother with her that Thanksgiving. From what I heard, they'd grown cold and quiet, more disappointed than angry. Then the bigger news made its way to me. I was sitting at the diner when a guy I used to work with passed through town. We got to talking, and somewhere between coffee refills, he said he'd seen her. Said she'd changed. Said she was calling what she did companionship, meeting men through some shady app or arrangement site. It wasn't a rumor. He knew someone who had crossed paths with her. Said she didn't even flinch when talking about it. Just shrugged it off like it was the weather. The money wasn't good. And she wasn't doing it out of desire. She was just tired. Real tired. That's what stuck with me most. He said she looked worn, like whatever fire used to be behind her eyes had long since gone out. Not sad. Not angry. Just hollow. It didn't hit me with joy. Didn't fill me with justice. It hit me like a quiet truth. Some betrayals don't just end marriages. They ruin souls. She'd broken me once. Took a version of me that believed in loyalty, in partnership, and beat it into the ground. But I didn't stay broken. I built something new. Stronger. Wiser. And a hell of a lot more careful with where I place my trust. That version of me she destroyed? He's gone. And the man who stood up, rebuilt, and walked out clean, he's not bitter. He's just free. Sometimes revenge isn't about making someone hurt. Sometimes it's about living better while they rot in the mess they made. And that's the kind of victory that don't need fireworks. Just silence. And peace. Share your thoughts in the comments. What would you have left in the note on the kitchen table? If you liked the story, subscribe to the channel and give us a like.